Hello everyone, you're welcome back here once again. My name is Nancy. In today's video, I'll be sharing with you how to cut this beautiful wrap dress. And in my next tutorial, I'll be showing you how to join these pieces together to make it a wrap dress. So if you're interested in learning how to go about this cutting, please keep on watching and let's get started. So let's start with the upper part of the dress. This is going to be a template and I folded this paper into two. Now I went ahead to rule the starting line, which would be the shoulder line. The next step is to mark the neck width, which is 3 inches. For a plus size person, you should mark 4 inches. Now for the neck width, I marked 1 inch to connect both points together. Now on the shoulder line, I placed my shoulder measurement divided by 2 plus half inch sewing allowance, which made it 7.5 inches. I went ahead to mark 1 inch below this point to connect the neck width to this point as shown. The next step is to place the measuring tape on the tip of the shoulder slope to mark your armhole circumference divided by 2. Then you should connect both points together to form a straight line. Now, at the tip of this line, I will be making an horizontal line which would be called the bust line. Now, to get the armhole curve, I placed my tape on the armhole line to mark half of the armhole circumference and then connected it to the bust line to form a curve. Now I placed my tape from the shoulder line vertically downwards to mark the half length of this dress, which is 16 inches plus 1 inch sewing allowance to the hem. That would be 17 inches altogether. Now on the bust line, I placed my bust circumference divided by 4 plus 1.5 inches sewing allowance to the side. On the waistline, I placed my waist measurement divided by 4 and I added 1 inch allowance for the waist start. I went ahead to add back the 1.5 inches to the side to connect both the bust circumference to the waist circumference as shown. Alright, the next thing I did was to add half inch sewing allowance to the top of the shoulder slope. The next step is to trim out the sides following the direction of the marker. So this would be the back piece of the upper part of this dress. Now the next thing I did was to place this on my main fabric to cut out exactly the same shape. Now to get the front piece of the upper part, I would spread out this template. Now to mark the neckline, I'll be placing my tape from the highest part of the shoulder as shown. And if you don't want to expose your cleavage, you should mark 6.5 inches like I did. But if you don't want to expose your cleavage, then you should go below 6.5 inches. Now from the bottom of the waistline on this side, I marked 2 inches upward. To connect the highest part of the shoulder to the neck depth, and to use the curved side of your ruler to connect the neck depth down. So this new point I marked above the waistline. So just make sure that the line isn't too curved. The next step is to trim out following the direction of this line. And this smaller part isn't needed anymore. Alright, so the next thing I did was to mark half inch inward from the center of the armhole. Then connected that point above to the tip of the shoulder slope and connected it below to the under armhole. So this is done to eliminate any excess fold on the armhole region of the front piece. So the next thing I did was to fold my main fabric into two and then place this template on it to cut out exactly the same shape. Alright, so this is the outcome here. The next thing I did was to fold the back piece into two to place it directly on the front piece. Now for the waist start, I'll place my tape from this fold to mark 3.5 inches inward. For a plus size person, you can mark 4.5 inches. Now I went ahead to notch this point I marked for the waist start. Alright, so this is the upper part of the dress. Now to make the lower part of the dress, which is in form of a skirt, I folded the pattern paper into two. The first step is to mark the waistline. So recall that the half length of the dress which was subtracted from the upper part was 16 inches. So I would place this 16 inches directly on the waistline of the skirt. The next line is the hip line, which is 25 inches. To know your hip line, you can add extra 10 inches to the half length. The next line is the full length of the dress. So the full length of my dress is 59 inches. So I added 1 inch sewing allowance to the hem, which made it 60 inches altogether. Now on the waistline, I'll place the waist circumference divided by 4 inches plus 1 inch allowance for the waist dart plus 1.5 inches sewing allowance to the side. Now on the hip line, I placed my hip circumference divided by 4 plus 1.5 inches sewing allowance to the side. To connect the waist circumference to the hip circumference. Now to get the hem circumference, I placed my tape on the hip circumference. Here I have 11.5 inches. I went ahead to subtract 1.5 inches from that 11.5 inches, which made it 10 inches. So now I'll be connecting the hip circumference to the hem circumference as shown. So before cutting out, I'll be adding half-inch sewing allowance to the top of the waistline. Alright, the next thing I did was to fold my main fabric into two, then place this template directly on it to cut out exactly the same shape. So this would be the back piece of the skirt part. Now to get the front piece of the skirt, I'll be showing you how to place the measurements. Now I placed my tape from the center of the waistline vertically downwards, and then I went ahead to mark 20 inches because that is where I want the slit of the skirt to be at the center front. So this 20 inches is not a standard measurement. It depends on how exposed you want your laps to be. So if you want your laps to be more exposed, then maybe you should mark 17 inches, but it's preferable to mark from 20 inches downwards. Alright, on this side of the waistline, I marked 2 inches to connect both points together. The next step is to spread out the paper. Now on this side of the hem, I placed my tape to mark 7 inches. For a plus size person, yours can be 9 inches or 10 inches. Now I'll connect both points together. The next step is to trim out, following the direction of this line. Alright, the smaller part of the front piece isn't needed anymore. The next thing I'll do here is to fold my fabric into two and then place this template on it to cut out exactly the same shape. After cutting out the front piece of the skirt, this is how it should be. So now I went ahead to fold the back piece of the skirt into two to place it directly on the front piece, making sure that the hip sides are equal. The next step is to mark the waist dart. Since I marked 3.5 inches for the waist dart on the upper part, I placed my tape on the center of this fold to mark 3.5 inches as well. to notch. So this is basically how the lower part of the dress is. Alright, you can see that the wrap opening at the center front is moderate. To cut the sleeve, I folded the fabric into two. Now I went ahead to mark the starting line. From the starting line, I placed the tape vertically downwards to mark the cap sleeve line, which is 4.5 inches. To extend this line, the next step is to mark the full length of the sleeve. Placing my tape from the starting line vertically downwards, the full length of my sleeve is 23 inches, so I added extra 2 inches to the hem, which made it 25 inches. So after folding the hem and inserting the elastic, it becomes 23 inches. Now on the cap sleeve line, I placed my armhole circumference divided by 2 and connected this point to the tip of the first line. The next step is to mark the midpoint of this slant line. The next step is to connect the midpoint ½ inch above the slant line to the top of this line, and to also connect the midpoint below this line to the cap sleeve line. Now on the cap sleeve line, I added 1.5 inches sewing allowance to the side. So whatever measurements I have here, this is 8.5 inches. I would subtract 1.5 inches from that, and that would be 7 inches. Now I went ahead to mark 7 inches on the hem of the sleeve to connect both points together. The next step is to cut out the sleeve, and I would place this on my main fabric to cut out the second sleeve. Alright guys, this is how simple it is to cut a wrap dress. In the next tutorial, I'll be showing you how to sew the pieces of this wrap dress together. So if this tutorial was helpful, kindly subscribe, share and like my videos, and also put on your notification bell to be notified when I upload new tutorials. See you in my next video. Bye.